All right, are you ready?
Anytime.
Well, welcome. Happy Halloween, everyone. I'm obviously wearing my Santa Claus costume today. So, it's a pleasure welcoming you to Center for Teaching Excellence. I'm Augie Grant, and I direct the center, and with us today is one of the shining stars of the USC system. And I like to point out that a lot of people don't think about the fact that we are a system, that we have 8 campuses that are part of USC. We're all closely connected together, and we have stars throughout this constellation. And Sherry is one of them. Sherry Grosso, her title is Senior Instructor in the Division of Business Administration and Economics for USC Palmetto College, working out of the Sumter campus, but she's much more than that. She was the first faculty member to offer online courses at USC Sumter. Since then, she's been certified as a Quality Matters Master Reviewer and Peer Reviewer. She's done 36 course reviews across the country. The Oxford Journal Global Top 50, Oxford Journal gave her an award as one of the Global Top 50 educators. So she's received the Hugh T. Stoddard Award as the Outstanding USC Sumter Faculty Member. She's also, this is very significant for me, received the Professor for Affordable Learning Award. Right. And has also been inducted into Alpha Sigma Lambda, the National Honor Society, recognizing adult students and faculty who support adult students. So here you have a person who is deeply embedded in education and how we apply the tools. So I give you Sherry.
Thank you. Thank you for that very kind introduction. That is my email address if you want to jot that down. If you have any questions afterwards or things that you'd like me to clarify more, I'm going to go over a lot of information. So at any time, if you have a question and you need to interrupt me, please feel free to do that, okay? We're going to be talking about Quality Matters and using their rubric of standards to design online courses. And as Augie mentioned, I've been teaching online classes for USC Sumter since 2010. And now I teach exclusively online. First, I wasn't sure I would like that, but I really enjoy the flexibility now. And I like the challenge of trying to modify my courses every semester, make them better, do what I can to help the students achieve learning. So let me ask you this. How many of you teach online right now? Great, okay. How many courses? What's your name?
My name is Farida.
Okay.
Yeah, I teach with other institutions, not with USC.
Okay.
With the University of Johns Hopkins for like kids or
right.
The K-12 students.
Okay.
And with Campbell University for students who are studying law and then they need like convenient time to study Arabic language.
Good. How about
I teach for Anderson University, and I teach I teach voice lessons online.
That's cool.
For their Masters of Music in Education.
That's
degree.
excellent. Now, are you all interested in teaching online? Is this something you're thinking about?
I was doing TA
Yeah.
for the course that my advisor was teaching at the University of Lisbon.
Uh-huh.
I was doing it last year. I mean, even though we teach here, so this semester I'm doing co-teaching. I'm gonna teach next semester by myself,
Okay.
but not online. But whenever you teach face-to-face, you still need to apply for.
Well, sure.
online.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Quality Matters deals primarily with online and blended courses, but a lot of the standards that they use absolutely can apply and should apply to all courses. So, yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
That's okay.
Okay, my understanding, not now, but in the very beginning. So when I read something about this online course, in my mind, it was always like the students and teacher. So okay, like when I was in my master's, some of my PhD student friends were saying, "Oh, I'm teaching online," and the thing that I was dreaming or imagining. So he's sitting somewhere, and students at the same time, I know they're at home office where, and they're interacting simultaneously at the same time.
Right.
I don't know if they were seeing them in each other or not, but like that was the online course in my mind for me.
Right.
But what I see here, I mean, right now, the concept is a bit different. So I would like to ask you, like, could you like describe? Is there a different
Yes,
times?
absolutely. In fact, I'm very glad you brought that up. All of my classes are asynchronous, which means I do not interact with the students live, in time, okay? I present the course in Blackboard, and I have all the materials, I have pre-recorded lectures that I've done, videos, assignments, quizzes, tests, exams, all of that is in a Blackboard shell. And I have the students, well, I'll show you in a little bit, but everything's organized in what I call modules, learning modules. And they have, the text to read, they have things to watch, they have assignments to do, and all that, I give them due dates, deadlines, so to speak. And some things are graded automatically. Some things I have to grade, like if it's a discussion or, an essay, something like that. And, give them feedback and everything. Now, the synchronous part comes in for my classes if I do like a review for a test or something like that. I use the Adobe Connect system that USC provides. It's free. It's sort of like Skype, but I like it because it's through the university. And I don't necessarily like show my face. I mean, you can. What I like to do is talk, and the students can log in. I give them the login, and I can present like a whiteboard. And if they have a question, I can write on my computer on the whiteboard, and they can watch that. I teach econ, and I also teach management science. So with econ, there are a lot of calculations and things like that. So, I can demonstrate those. So that's one way we have some synchronous communication. And I also record those so that if somebody can't attend this review session, then they can watch it later. I also do synchronous communication if they want to have online office hours. Now, I do have an office in Sumter, but I live in Columbia, so I don't go there that often. But I do online office hours, and that's the same sort of thing where I use Adobe Connect. They can log in, I can log in. We can, talk about something. I can demonstrate. So that is the way I do my classes. So it's primarily asynchronous, meaning it's available. They can do it when they want. They can be 1 o'clock in the morning reading their texts and doing their assignments, etc., as long as they meet the due dates. I don't care. I do care that they log in and not wait till the last minute. But, and I think one reason I like that is because students really appreciate flexibility. I know that there are other online courses that are offered in a synchronous manner. I know the business school does an MBA kind of like that. But that's just not the approach that I've taken.
So we cannot know the content or the way the course will be delivered just from the title. So I cannot, when I say online course, so I don't know, for example, it's gonna be.
You don't know.
Yeah.
I've taken classes here and you have no idea. And
Right.
some of them are like, you must be online
So why
from
don't
4 to
Right.
7 p.m.
Right.
And others are like, you can do whenever you want.
Right.
I mean, it will be beyond what I'm saying now. like,
Yeah, you have to
beyond-
take that up with the provost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because it's not about our institution. It's a general term, like where I see, like even in Europe, they use the same. So like, I don't really. Maybe we should bring in new terms like it's synchronous.
Synchronous, means you're
online
together,
course,
or
asynchronous
asynchronous,
only,
yeah.
something
or
like that.
partially, yeah.
And I
Sure,
have an idea.
And I say up front in my syllabus what it is. I let them know up front. And I post that before the class starts. So if they've registered for it, they can go into Blackboard and read that and see, so they know what to expect. So, yeah. So that's just a little bit about,
I have one quick question.
I'm sorry,
For
sure.
your Blackboard,
Yeah.
you mentioned that some of the stuff you have to grade and some of it gets graded
Mhm.
automatically.
Mhm.
Are you gonna cover that, or is that just a Blackboard feature where like you put the answers in for a quiz?
Yeah, I mean, you can do Blackboard tests. Obviously, multiple choice questions are graded automatically.
Yeah.
You can do fill in the blank questions that are graded automatically. And I like those for calculations because, you might not think that multiple choice can give you that option, but it can in Blackboard. And it's similar to, you create the question, but then you tell Blackboard the acceptable responses.
Okay.
And, it's a little tedious if you really want to cover everything, like, do they put a $? Do they put the decimal? Do they put the 2 zeros? But however you lay it out, Blackboard will accept that answer. So that's one way to create things that are auto-graded, multiple choice, true, false, I don't do true, false, but multiple choice, fill in the blank, things like that. If you have open-ended questions, then you can incorporate those in a quiz or a test, but some of it could be graded and you'd have to go in and grade those. Discussions, I do have to go in and grade. So, I like to have a variety of things. But yeah, if you ever want to talk about Blackboard, Blackboard and I are old friends, so we can talk about Blackboard. All right. Anyway, this is what we're doing today. This was in the description. And I'm going to talk a little bit about their QM and their rubric. But I think that one of the reasons I like QM is because they do use best practices. It's based on research. It's been around a long time. And they really are all about student learning. Okay? And they started in 2003. And their overriding question was, how do they measure the quality of a course and hopefully guarantee it, okay? And that's how they came up with this rubric, they call it. And also a peer review process where they train faculty. They set up this process where faculty review courses, and that's what Augie said. I had done 36, but I just started my 40th this week, so I've seen a lot of online courses from schools all over the country. So, and it really does vary. And then once they go through this process, they either get certified or they have things that they need to work on to improve to get certified. So today, more than 1,300 colleges and universities use QM, and HE stands for higher education. They also deal with K-12, but I just do the higher education. And then they also have publisher reviews. And I've done a couple of those where they look at publisher materials. So certified thousands of online courses. Not too many here yet, so we need to work on that. All right, the rubric, I'm going to show you something more interesting in a minute, but they have what they call 8 general standards and 42 specific review standards within those 8, okay? And the 42 are what you really look at to see if the course is doing what you want it to do. And they use what they call annotations, which explain how you apply the standards. And they're real helpful when you're reviewing a course. And you can review your own. When we get finished, I'm going to show you how you can set up a Quality Matters account. If you want to, it's free. It doesn't mean that you have to do this or anything. But one thing I like about it is that you can go in there and set up a test or sample class, and then you can look at the standards and what they call their annotations and how they score. Okay, so this is the complete rubric, and I couldn't copy it for you, but it's on qualitymatters.org. It's qualitymatters.org. You can dig through there and find this. But the general standards are over to the left, and then the 1.1, 1.2, etc. Those are those specific review standards. And then over to the right are the points that each of those are worth in their scoring system. Anything with a 3, they deem imperative. That a course has to have that to meet the quality review. The 2s are important, but not as, and then the 1s, so. But talks about the course overview, the introduction, learning objectives, assessment and measurement, instructional materials, learning activities and interaction, and we're going to talk about all of these. Technology in the course, learner support, and accessibility and usability. So 42 individual little things, and if you really design your course to meet all of those, it's going to be a really good course. All right, so these are the general standards, okay? The overview and introduction, then we're going to do the objectives, and we're going to talk about the assessment and measurement, and then the materials and all that. I think when you start a course and when a student clicks on Blackboard and looks at the course, you want them to have a really good idea what it's about. And you want them to know, is it synchronous? Is it asynchronous? That kind of thing, okay? So the design needs to be clear from the very beginning. And I have seen courses that were kind of all over the place. And then I've seen courses that had a menu down the side that must have had 25 items, okay? And you don't need that much to make it clear. We're going to talk about kind of organizing your course in a second. But one thing that I like to do is keep my menu fairly clean, okay? Not have any more than these things unless I have a test. I'll add a menu item for a test or the final. So this is just an example of one of my courses that is what the students would see as the menu choices in Blackboard, okay? And the second thing right there says start here with an exclamation point. And that's really because I want students to click there and start there. If they do, they'll get that overall idea of what the course is about as well as what they need to do, okay? So when I have my start here, there's the introduction, okay? And that just tells them a little bit about what to expect, any prereqs. And some of this information's in the syllabus too, but how many of us think that students really read all of the syllabus? Maybe. And then this, I want them to understand what an online course is all about because I teach a lot of freshmen and sophomores. I teach a lot of students who are coming back after being out of school for a while. For many of them, it's their first online class. Even today with, like high school and all that kind of stuff, a lot of my students, it's their first time taking it online. So, I want them to understand what it's all about. And right up there is where I talk about it being asynchronous, okay? So again, this is all available. They can read it. They can see, okay, what do I have to do? I also tell them how much time they need to take. Right now, most of my classes are an 8-week format, and we do that because a lot of business majors like to get in there and get them quick. So I do 8 weeks twice a semester. So, tell them how much time I expect them to be taking. So at least they know up front that even though this is online, okay, that it doesn't mean it's a correspondence course, okay? It doesn't mean that they can just, check in when they want. Their due dates, there are things that they have to do, and I expect them to spend time doing them, okay? So also as part of this overview, I really like to communicate my high expectations. Get it? High, climbing high, okay? For what they're going to be doing, but also for things like email, okay? Because it's online and this is the way we're communicating. We rely on, electronic communication. In fact, a lot of my students don't even know that email stands for electronic mail. So I give them a little sample, and obviously this is a little bit small to read. I tell them how to set it up because they either are now or hopefully will become business professionals. I want them to send business professional emails, okay? So I said, a greeting, your message, sign your name. And my favorite thing, my mother used to always say, hey is for horses. One of my pet peeves is getting an email that says, hey. I don't start a professional email with hey. I don't want them to do that either. So, laying out your expectations is really important when you start your course, okay? And if you look at those review standards, they go over a lot of this. They tell you to have a start here. They tell you to explain to students how you're going to communicate with them, things like that. Also, the Meet Your Professor, you saw that on the little menu tab. It's important to make a connection early on with your students in an online course. And to do that, I provide a little bio, and a picture. And by the way, I don't know where they got that picture they put on the website for this was really old, but anyway. And I like to tell them not just professional things about me, but personal things. Okay, so, like we're having a little conversation, they can get to know me a little bit. And then I also ask the students to introduce themselves through the discussion board, okay? And you can set it up how you like. I like to give them specific questions to answer because I think it directs their attention a little better, like, obviously the what year are you in school and that kind of thing. But, favorite food, favorite movie, favorite book. Sadly, I get a lot of, I hate reading. But anyway, sometimes I do something like, tell us 3 things about yourself, 2 of which are true and 1 is not. And then they have to read each other's intros and guess which one is not true. And, that's just like an icebreaker that I used to do in class, but you can do it here. A lot of the things that you did in class, you can adapt to online. Yeah.
You ask them to upload any pictures?
Yes, I do. And I do because I like them to get to know each other.
What about video? Like, I remember once when I was taking a course, he asked us to upload a 1-minute video.
Oh, that's a good idea, sure. And we're going to talk about introducing technology in a course, and that's a great way to do it. Not all of my students, well, I don't know, I shouldn't say that. I should try that more because there are a lot of tools that you could do that with. That would be a good idea. Yeah.
If a student prefers to be called by a different name, do you ask that?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Because Blackboard, their student ID is not always what they like to be called. And that brings up a good point. You need to pay attention to those things. Because if I email a student and I don't use that name, then what are they going to think? That I didn't read it. Exactly. So good point. Yeah, absolutely. And it's really fun to watch how they interact with each other. I love it. With the food stuff, with the interest, I like that movie too. Oh, have you tried this restaurant? Because I ask them to post, but I also, ask, it's graded, but to reply to at least 2 or 3 of their classmates, and depending on the size of the class. So they enjoy it. And I think it really helps build a community. And one of the things that I think is the research will show that online classes are more successful if a student feels like he or she is part of this community. That they're not just floating out there somewhere, with their computer and they don't know anybody else, that they're part of this group and they can interact almost like they would in a regular class. Okay, now, standard 2, learning objectives. And these are really key to developing your course and keeping everything on track. And simply put, they describe what you want your learners to be able to do. And Quality Matters looks at course objectives and then module objectives, okay? For some of us, the course objectives are dictated, okay? But if you're designing your class and you break it into modules, and I want to say module, not chapters, okay? I learned that lesson early on. This is an aside. My son's a lawyer now, so this is a sidebar. I used to design my courses with chapters, but then what happens when you switch text? You have to start over. So modules that are more topic-oriented are a little bit easier. But since you're doing that, for the most part, you have control over those objectives if you don't have control over your course objectives. They need to describe outcomes that are measurable. This is key. You need to be able to measure what you're saying you want your students to do. One way to help you with that is, what do you think this is? Anybody? Yes? Bloom's taxonomy. Have you heard of Bloom's? This is Bloom's taxonomy for action verbs. And I have a handout for you. This is the revised one, and I don't remember when it was revised, but what this is kind of a guide to helping us find verbs that we can use in our objectives to use measurable action words. If you turn on the side that says action verbs for creating learning outcomes, Bloom's revised taxonomy, there's a couple links and sources, but the levels, remembering is the bottom of the pyramid, meaning that's kind of the lowest level of understanding, okay? Just remembering. Understanding, a little bit higher, then applying, analyze, evaluate, and create. So creating is the highest level. And if you look at some of the verbs that would help describe an objective, measuring, create, you know, it's create, obviously, but construct, make, explain, okay? Compared to some of the verbs for remember, define, you know, that's pretty simplistic, identify, select, things like that. So you need to decide for either your course objectives or your module, what level your course is at. You know, is it a lower level course? Then you don't necessarily need to be directing all your objectives to creating. Because if it's, you know, a survey course or something, then maybe you will be at the lower level, remembering, understanding, applying, okay? But if it's a higher level course, then you really should be looking at some of these verbs in the analyzing, evaluating, and creating, okay? And I like to use these as a guide for creating objectives, but also when I review courses, because I can tell you, I've seen a lot of objectives that start with the word understand. And, you know, we think, well, yeah, you know, they need to understand. The problem is, how do you measure that? Okay? Right, exactly. And it's a category. But if you look at some of the verbs in that category, then you can easily revise your objective and pick one that's easier for you to measure. Okay? So that's kind of how this is used. And there are other sources. These are just two that I like to use. But if you look up Bloom's revised taxonomy, there's all kinds of research about it and other tables with verbs and things like that. Questions on that so far? Okay. So this is key. I think either creating your module and or course objectives directs your course, okay? You need to know what you want them to be able to do, what you want them to learn, okay? And Quality Matters has come up with this concept called alignment, all right? Critical course components work together to ensure students achieve learning outcomes. What does that mean? Well, let's say that you pick or write an objective that's create blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're not going to be able to assess that, then there's no point in using that objective, okay? You don't want to use ones that are not going to flow with what you're actually doing in your class. And this is kind of key to how Quality Matters wants us to design the courses, that these critical components work together. So what that means is this, just an example. We have a course objective that's, compared to whatever, characteristics of the 4 different industry structures. The module objectives need to be more specific than the course objective, but relate to it, okay? So if you can align your module objectives with 1 or 2 of your course objectives, then you know that you're kind of on the right track there. Again, the module objectives are more specific and again, designed for your level of class. This is from a survey class that I do. So, identify, explain on the lower level there. But when I'm talking about Monopoly, that's one of the 4 different industry types. So that's how they align to the course objective, okay? Standard 3, assessment and measurement. Who knows what that is? It's a cake tester. Do we have any bakers in here? The little yellow thing. Okay, that's why that's there as tester. Yeah. All right. So we're not just testing, we're assessing, we're measuring, but we need to try to make sure that our assessments measure the achievement of the objectives, okay? We don't want to create these fabulous assessments if they're not aligned to and measuring what we say our objectives are, okay? For example, suppose one of your objectives is write and deliver a speech, or this could be a voice lesson, something like that. But your assessment is a multiple choice test, okay? So does that measure the achievement of writing and delivering a speech? No, right? So when that happens, you don't have alignment. Poor little guy. So what we talk about in Quality Matters is look at the course objectives, look at the modules, are they aligned? Then the assessments, are we measuring what we say we want the students to achieve? And that's real important for all of us in ensuring that students understand what we're doing here, Are we just having these random assignments that don't meet anything that we said we want them to learn? Or, have we been thoughtful in planning these assignments so that we're actually trying to measure what we want them to know? So in this example, again, going through the same objectives, same modules, the assessments. So for 3 things with this Monopoly, they're going to participate in a discussion, they're going to complete an assignment and complete a quiz. And I've even seen some courses where, I don't do this, but I don't write it down, but where they've actually gone through and identified which question in the assignment would match up with which objective. And, if you want to be that detailed, it really helps you write good questions and make sure you're assessing what you say you want them to know. Also with assessment, you want your grading policy to be clear, okay? Students want to know how they're being graded, how it relates to whether they get an A or a B or whatever. Some people do points for assignments, total points, whatever you do. is fine. Just make sure it's clear and understandable to the students. Also, you want your criteria when you're grading to be clear. This is, sorry, it's kind of small, an example of a rubric for an assignment that I give them. And a rubric for, you can do these for assignments, for discussions, for whatever, but it gives students a detailed understanding of how they're going to be graded and how much each part of the grade counts towards the total. And Blackboard has nifty features now where you can actually do this within Blackboard. If you put your rubric in Blackboard, then when you go to the part that you're grading, the essay or the discussion or whatever, you can bring up that rubric and it'll show you how many points, so you can put the points in, and then it's graded automatically. So, I mean, you still have to read it and grade it, but it's not very tedious at all. It's pretty good. So, good feature in there. All right, so we're already on standard 4, which is instructional materials, okay? And again, you need to think about what materials are going to help your learners learn or achieve your objectives. We keep going back to the objectives, okay? So for example, textbook. I do use a text, but as Augie mentioned, for this particular class, I'm using an open source book, which has worked out really well. Students like it, it's free, and it's online. And I thought I might get a lot of pushback about students saying that they wanted a paper version, but and that is available if they want. But most of them are pretty happy with the online book, especially since it's free. So, but I still have them read it, so that's a material. I do provide a lot of handouts because, you know, I'm a teacher, been a teacher for a long time, can't get away from the paper. Although these are electronic, but as you see, I have my trusty paper ones like I used to in my face-to-face classes. And then videos, you know, I try to find good videos, okay? And let me just put a little caveat in there. I don't think it's a good idea to throw a lot of materials out there just because, oh, that looks cool or that's fun. You really got to think about, is this going to help them achieve that objective? Are they going to learn something? Because you don't want to waste their time. That's another thing, you know. When they log into Blackboard, they want to be able to see what they have to do and do it and not, you know, get bogged down and, oh, you know, well, that was dumb. So I try to keep the videos pretty short, under 15 minutes for sure. Okay, 15. I mean, think about how long is a YouTube video? Yeah, right, 5 at most, maybe, right? So, you know, that's what they're conditioned for these days, sadly. So if you're putting stuff up there that's 30 minutes, even though, you know, it's something you recorded or you recorded yourself doing a lecture, either chunk it in pieces or kind of rethink and come up with something shorter. So I try to find ones that are good, that I think do a good job with material, and are captioned correctly. And YouTube, you got to watch it. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. Okay. So these are materials that I would have for this lesson. And then this, I also like to incorporate kind of fun videos, TV, movies. This is, anybody recognize?
Soup Nazi.
Very good. Seinfeld. The Soup Nazi. And this is a clip from that episode. And for their discussion assignment, I have it in Blackboard where they watch this clip and then they have to identify and explain, my words, why he's a monopoly and what happens to his monopoly after Elaine gives out the recipes. And it's just an example of kind of a fun thing, but some of them have seen it, some of them haven't. But, they enjoy that kind of stuff because it's not dry, and you're relating econ to real life. So, I get a lot of comments about, oh, that was, interesting. I never thought about that. So you think about it and then they will. All right, so then Again, we have our alignment where we have course, module, the assessments, and then the materials that support those assessments, okay? General Standard 5, learning activities and learner interaction. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but just like we don't want that situation there. Can you see the guy with his head down in class? Of course, in my face-to-face classes, I never would have allowed that. In fact, I used to say in my syllabus, if you're too tired to stay awake, don't come to class, because nothing, that just annoyed me. But anyway, we don't want that in a face-to-face class, right? But we don't want this in an online class, okay? We don't want the students being so bored either listening to something or reading it, whatever, that they fall asleep, okay? So Quality Matters emphasizes activities, active learning, and interaction, okay? The reason is because if you can structure your learning as active, you're going to engage your students. Like that? Engage. Nice done, huh? But again, and this is important, you don't want to just throw things out there to say you're doing active learning, okay? Your activities need to promote the mastery of your objectives, okay? They need to relate back, okay? So you don't want them just doing something to do it because it's active learning. You need to think about it and say, is this going to help, okay? Is this going to help them master that objective, learn the material? So once you figure that out, these activities can be one learner by herself doing it, okay? Or you can have group activities, okay? And that's completely up to you. I like to have a mix. I think students don't often expect group activities in an online class, but there are ways that you can do it, either little group projects, or you can have group discussions, and there are other ideas. But most of my activities are one student, but again, if you incorporate group activity, they do enjoy that as well. Okay. Quality Matters talks about 3 kinds of interaction. And I think when I first saw this, I didn't understand that this was active. But they call the 3 types learner to content. And what does that mean? That means that your students are interacting with your content, okay? Reading the text is interacting with content, okay? It's active learning because they're actually doing something, as opposed to, sitting in a classroom and hoping to be a sponge, They have to actually interact with that content. The second type is learner to learner, okay? They're interacting with each other. And that can be through discussions, that can be through group work. Besides my structured discussions, I also have one that I call questions about the course. And in my expectations, my start here, one of the things that I really get specific about is what they do if they have questions. And I explain that I want them to try to find their answers on their own. If they can't, I have this question form in Blackboard where they can post a question, and I invite all the other participants, students, to respond. And if they respond correctly, they get extra credit. But they like it because they get to help each other, and it keeps them engaged in the learning, okay? And of course, I monitor these and answer questions, and they still email me and things like that. But, that's just another way where you can get learner-to-learner interaction. through structured discussions, through these open-ended question discussions. I've tried different ones where, like, anything you want to talk about kind of thing, but that didn't get a lot of play. They didn't really take advantage of that too much. I think they just want to stay focused on the course. And then learner to instructor, obviously. And one of the keys to having a successful course is feedback. That's feedback. So when we talk about learner to instructor interaction, it's important to students that I give them feedback, okay? That I acknowledge their name, that I respond to their emails and questions, that I give them feedback on their discussions, not just graded, but a few comments. And I keep them pretty short, but you'd really be surprised how much it means to them. I get evaluation comments a lot, and they say, she gives good feedback. I appreciated it. It made me feel like I was there. It made me feel like, she was trying to encourage me, all that kind of stuff. So it's really important to give the feedback, but also to let your students know when you're going to give their feedback. For example, we don't want to be sending snail mail and relying on the Pony Express, okay? And again, this is up to you, but I tell students I'll reply to their email within 24 hours on a weekday. If it's the weekend, I say Monday, although I usually just do it before that, okay? I tell them that if their assignment is not auto-graded in Blackboard, that I'll grade it within either 1 day or 2 days, depending on what kind it is, of when it's due. Not when they submit it, but when it's due, because I'm not going to grade them until everybody's submitted everything. I tell them, when they can expect feedback on the discussions and the question form also, okay? So all the different ways that they're interacting, I try to let them know that I am going to reply, that I am going to give them feedback, and when they can expect it, okay? Because otherwise, again, I don't want them to feel like, they're just doing all this. Hey, I posted a question, but, she never read it, she never replied, that kind of thing, because that causes frustration. And I think more than anything, especially first-time online learners, if they get frustrated, they're going to give up, okay? And I don't want them to stop doing the work, stop coming to class and doing it because they get frustrated. Because I think if they, just keep playing through, they'll be fine. And for the most part, they are. Yeah.
I would like to ask, what's your deadline approach? Like, do you accept any work after deadline?
No, I do not. Unless, it's, I've had, deaths, I've had illness, things like that. I had this class I showed you, lovely woman who gave birth 5 days after class started. So she needed a little extra time in the beginning, but then she got right into it and she did wonderfully, So I generally say no. I say no in the syllabus. But yeah, I make exceptions if I need to. But one reason I say no is because I have everything out there, at least for the whole module, okay? I also have a course schedule. And that lists every assignment, every discussion, the test, everything, and when it's due, okay? They can look at that from day one and see what's coming up, okay? So I tell them in my expectations in the start here, they need to have a computer. That, they need to not wait till the last minute because I don't want them emailing me, as they have, at 11:59 when I have something to do, saying my computer died, okay? No, No. You had time to plan ahead. You had time to do this before 11:59 p.m. the day it was due. And again, things come up, I understand. But for the most part, no. Otherwise, what I found is you're going to drive yourself nuts because, first of all, it's not fair. I'm big on fair, okay? I don't like it when people try to take advantage and other people, even ones who just had a baby, are doing their work on time, And, I think it's helping them be more organized, learn some responsibility, learn what's going to happen in the real world, at least the real business world as I knew it, because I did other things before teaching. So, long answer to a short question.
I was
Go ahead.
I was thinking of what, because I had it when I was grading for this co-teaching course, and it was the 80 students, so 10 of them didn't submit. And I asked the professor, what should I do? He said, contact them and ask them if there's any technical problems or not. And one of them, student, said, I wasn't aware of the assignment. That was international student.
Right.
I'm talking about in intro class, like
Yeah.
majority of them is first.
Yeah, and I get that too, sure.
And I said, okay, then send it. I was thinking I can, grade maybe like cut some point.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, do it whenever. He said I can do it today. I said, but then also I CC the professor. He said, no, don't accept it because it's not fair.
Right.
From his point, the fairness, but from my point, okay, he's the boss, so I was follow his rules. But if I was the main instructor, I would probably accept it as long as I see it's not his behavioral patient for long term, just for this case, and it's international. I don't know.
I understand.
I
understand. I understand international too. My husband was from France. And like I said, I do make exceptions, but I kind of look at the trend as well. Is this the first time? Is this, what's the excuse? And
so you go see all those things and you don't really very firm. It was no.
It depends,
And I was thinking to solve this problem, maybe give two deadlines. The first one is the extra point deadline. So who's the overachiever or wanna finish early, and they can get extra points. And the actual deadline will be for everyone. So the first deadline will be a warning for those late doors.
That's a good idea. Yeah, and I have done that once in a while when I had to change a due date, like for weather or for whatever. I said, if you get it in by the original due date, I'll give you extra credit. But in general, that's good. The Blackboard is a little bit hard to do that kind of thing because in Blackboard you have a due date, and so I've thought about how can you have two due dates? You sort of can. Maybe because you can have different due dates for students with disabilities, that kind of stuff. So it's something to think about because that way, instead of being punitive, you're rewarding good behavior. Yeah. So, and it's completely up to you as long as you're clear when you lay out your expectations. And again, and I actually get a lot of international students now because Sumter has started like soccer and they have tennis players and they're from all over. I had 2 tennis players from Ecuador of all places. They go to Sumter. Wow. That was okay. And I kept thinking, where are they going to eat, those poor boys? But anyway, but I think, because I know it's laid out, because I know it's really clear, because I know that, the schedule's there, the module's there, the due dates are there, and I send a ton of reminders. And I didn't say that, but, I go back, I shouldn't have to, but I do. I send a lot of emails, and I tell them again in my expectations, when I send an announcement, it goes to your email, and it's the email you have listed in Blackboard. If that's not the one you're going to use, then, check something else. But, I send announcements at the beginning of the module. I send announcements the day before something's due. Sometimes the day it's due. If I look and see that, half the class hasn't done it yet, then I'll send one that day. Yeah.
Does Blackboard have the capability of sending text messages to students?
Good question. Not that I know of, but there is a program, and I don't remember the name of it right now. I haven't tried it. I keep meaning to. Aisha Haynes, one of our instructional designers here, used it. And the last time I talked to her about it, they were thinking about changing it so it wasn't free. So I keep meaning to ask her about that. But yeah, that would be a great feature in Blackboard.
Well, Blackboard has the app, so if you have your push notifications turned on, I think it'll alert you when something is updated.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It updates you like a professor puts grades in.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Or
Okay.
you get an alert that says like, you got a 93 on this paper.
Or
Oh,
there's been an announcement made in your class. or whatever.
okay.
So if you tell your students to download
The app
the app and to set push notifications.
set. Okay.
If I didn't
Good
have the app,
idea.
I would not know what's happening.
Okay, that's good. I like
They'll
that.
log in all the time and then if you
Right.
miss an update.
Now, does it let them know if I post an announcement too, or do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Anything, it will say like your personal
Right.
grade.
Oh, okay.
It's like Blackboard.
Blackboard app.
App.
Like, yes.
That's funny you said that because I had a
So if
student-
you don't grade right away, they know.
Well, that's
I
true.
teach for freshmen and they're all about it.
Oh, isn't that the truth? But I had one trying to use the app to do an assignment, and it doesn't work real well for that. So that was my hesitation with the app. But I'll try to embrace it for that. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Do we have, who are familiar with the apps, do we have different apps for instructors and students?
No, see, that's, yeah.
I don't see the courses that I'm teaching in this app, I just see the courses that
Because you're not listed as the main
Because you're not the
instructor.
main instructor on
You're
record.
the
I'm the co-op instructor.
Like you're
I mean,
not,
I'm on
your
Blackboard.
professor has to add you as a teaching assistant.
But like on Blackboard, I
Your
see.
professor has to add you as a teaching assistant though, then it will show up as you're an instructor on.
On the app.
I mean, when I open it on the Blackboard website, the laptop, I see myself.
Okay.
And in the
But all the
app,
apps.
I just see the courses I'm taking. So that's why I.
Your
was-
co-instructor didn't add you correctly.
But I think you can add it on when you go to the app, you can add and take stuff away. Oh, see, look, somebody announced me.
You can, because you can block ones from previous, you can block ones from previous semester.
That's
Right,
funny.
you block ones from the previous semester, but I think you can
Add them as
add
well.
some.
But no, that's good to know. I will have to check into that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
This picture is just letting them know that I do online office hours and, online online reviews, things like that. That's. Okay, so back to alignment. We have our objectives, course module, assessments, materials, activities, and then we have our technologies, okay? And again, we don't want to use technology just for the sake of using technology, okay? Because they're going to see right through that. We want to use ones that support the achievement of course objectives. And Econ actually has a lot of fun things, believe it or not. Econ can be fun. This is a website I like to use where it's interactive. They manipulate the graphs, okay? So I like to find websites that are good. Obviously, we talked about movies. This is Adobe Connect, what I was talking about I use to do recorded lectures. And I also use Adobe Presenter, and there are other technologies that you can do this with, where I do like a video or something, but then I have interactive questions, and they have to answer that question in order to continue with the video. And you can do it for a grade. It can be an assignment. It can just be like a participation grade, that kind of thing. So I have this handout for you, and this one, Aisha, again, one of the designers here, did this one at a conference, but it's 10 technology tools. And I haven't tried them all, but I have tried some of them. But they're kind of nifty. Again, you don't want to do technology for the sake of doing it, but you do want to include it, especially with today's students, because, you know, they're so technology savvy for the most part, and they enjoy it. Like, for example, on the first page, that blabberize, it's really cute. You take a picture, and you can manipulate the mouth so it's talking. And, you know, if you look on the website, they have silly stuff, animals talking, things like that. But I like to get a picture of an economist like Adam Smith and then have him talk, well, really, it's my voice, but you have to change it, you know, and do a little intro to the topic that he would be talking about. Okay, so, I mean, lots of different tools. There's some good sites on here to find images, okay, if you want to use images in your course. So I guess the key is using tools that support your objectives. And the way Quality Matters looks at tools, even within your LMS, which is our Blackboard, discussion board is a tool, okay? Creating an assignment is a tool. Creating a quiz, that's a tool. Students using the gradebook is a tool. Announcements are tools. And I'll have to add the app as a tool. Gradebook, I don't know if you noticed on my original menu, I have a thing where it says check grades. And I let them see the grades, and I have one column that says current course grade. And it's a weighted average of everything they're doing, so that every time they get something auto-graded or I grade something, their grade updates. So they always know where they stand in the class, okay? So I don't want them coming to, you know, the final exam not realizing that they have a, 69 or something like that. I want them to know where they stand so that they'll work harder to improve. So gradebook, we don't necessarily think of it, but it is a tool, and it helps them achieve those objectives. Okay, just two more. Standard 7, learner support. And this talks about all of the services that the university provides for the students to help them succeed. And I think they aren't even always aware of what's out there for them. So in my Start Here information and in my syllabus, I go through some of the different things like technology help desk, like accessibility, okay, and where they can find information about that, library services, all those kinds of things. And that leads to Standard 8, which is about accessibility and usability, okay? And Quality Matters in this most recent review update, which was 2018, so the one we're looking at now is pretty current, really expanded the accessibility standards, okay? So courses that in the past may have met the standards now will probably have to update and really take a look at some of these. For example, we think videos, okay, are they captioned or do you have a transcript? People always say, well, images, okay, do you have the alt text on your image so that a screen reader will announce that image? But it's also things like when you have a website in your course, do you have, click here? That's not good, okay? Because a screen reader wouldn't know what they were clicking on. Or do you have like some super long address, HTTP, da 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 da. Again, think of a screen reader reading that to a blind student. That's not going to cut it. So what an example is creating these links so that they make sense. So your link says Blackboard support, and the screen reader would come to that and say, link Blackboard support, so that they know what that means, okay? So these are just different things to think about for accessibility, and I have a handout for you. This is just a quick checklist, again, from the CTE here. And at the top of that is the link. And I did it 2 ways, where it says CTE accessibility. That's what I would put in Blackboard. And the one underneath is the whole thing, because you can't click on that, you have to type it. But that is where you can find lots of information about accessibility from the CTE, and a lot of detail about your Word, your PowerPoint, your internet, all that kind of stuff, okay? Now the other thing we look at is usability, and this is key for me. I want students to use the course. You don't want them navigating the waters by themselves. Get that? Navigating, okay. So that's why clean menu structure. So they know what they're going to click on. When they go to the module, you have a folder, and I try to keep it one deep. I know that some people do folders within folders within folders. I don't do that because, it's too hard to find things. And, was I here, was I here, was I here? I keep it one deep, which means learning module, one folder for module 1, okay? And I explain what module 1 is about. Those are the dates. Now that's a week, but you don't have to have Monday through Monday or Monday through Friday. You can set your modules up how it suits your schedule, okay?
Assignments very important.
Huh?
The assignments.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't put assignments on the side. You know why? I found that if I put assignments down that side menu, you know where they're going to click? Assignments. Learning module. So when they go to that, okay, here's an example, that same one we're talking about, competition monopoly. They click on that, then they're going to see that at the top of the module. They're going to see the outcomes or objectives, and then the assignments listed. These are the same that are on the schedule, okay? They have them here, they have them on the schedule. But they go into the module, that's the first thing they see. Then they're going to see the materials, okay? Then they're going to see what they need to do in the order that they need to do it, okay? Based on the due dates. So it's linear, but students often in the evaluation comments tell me that they appreciate how well organized it is, okay? And so I do this every time. Now, this is, real quickly, I know I'm running out of time. Quality Matters, and I do have this handout for you, so you can do this on your own if you want to. The reason I'm giving you this is if you want to create a Quality Matters account, the University of South Carolina, Columbia is a member, okay? So you can create your own account, and this explains how to do that. And then what it also explains is why. And one of the reasons I like to do this is because if you create what they call a self-review, and the handout explains all that, you can see all of these standards, okay? And they have 1 through 8, but then they also have the little substandards, 1.1 and all that. It tells you what it is, but those things, those annotations that I was talking about, okay? They explain in a lot more detail what each of those objectives means in the standards, okay? So you can use that to design your course, okay? You can go through here step by step, each of the standards, each of the general, each of the specific review standards. You can read it. The annotations give you examples. They talk about what meets the standard and what doesn't, okay? So it's just a real detailed way to help you use the rubric, if you want to design your course. And then this, real quickly, is what the CTE has developed as kind of their version of the rubric, and they call this Distributed Learning Quality Assurance Standards. And it's adapted from the rubric, and if you go into Quality Matters, you'll see how they relate. They're not exactly the same, they're pretty similar, but they have been doing reviews of online courses, the CTE has, distributed learning reviews. And this is what they base those reviews on. And so I've had all mine done, and if you have an online class and you want them to review it, and they agree to it, you get paid. They said they don't have too much money left before the end of the year, but they do have some. So it's something to think about if you want to develop a course and have them review it. They're wonderful. The designers are very helpful. If you're stuck with finding materials or how to do an assignment, they're real good about that kind of stuff. So that's an option for you as well. And then finally, go back to this. So again, if you keep in mind what Quality Matters wants you to do, okay, you have your objective. And I'm sure you noticed, but obviously, food, I like to bake, I used to cater. Okay, the objective was going to be the cake. We had our measure, assessments were measuring that objective. We had our materials that we would need to achieve that objective. We had our activities to achieve that objective, and we had our tools, okay? So if all those are aligned and the students understand it, then you're going to achieve your objective and you are going to have a wonderful outcome that they will enjoy. And I know I'm about out of time. I just wanted to quickly show you this. Like I said, I get a lot of comments on my online classes, and truthfully, they're mostly good, which is reaffirming to me because I know that the work I put into it is worthwhile, that the students enjoy it. But things like, they felt like they were being tested on the material. I gave them the tools they needed, learning outcomes, what I expected, extra materials, answering questions, attentive, instructions clear, feedback, felt like you were there, I like that. Interactivities were actually fun. Great communication, graded discussions, expedient with grading, communicated. This one I thought, my first online, I could be myself and respect each student had for each other. So it's good to see this because that's what you want. You want them to enjoy it, but learn as well. Organized, they like the module structure, positive feedback, reminders they like. Again, organization, the layout, videos, and then, I learned an incredible amount. So, just examples of some of the comments some of these were just from Fall 1 that I just finished up. So again, that's why I try to incorporate the rubric standards, try to design my courses and deliver them so that we can get the best results possible. So, all right, I've got 2 minutes for questions or more if you need it, that's fine. General questions?
Yeah, for the online QM, isn't that we can review our online course and ask them to review that?
No. If QM reviews it, you have to go through the university, and that's a whole separate process. Yeah. But what you can do is that self-review. And that's where you would go through and look at each of the standards and ask yourself if you're meeting them. But the CTE is doing this distributed learning review. So if you do this through the CTE, they'll review it for you. And it's really just to help you improve it, right? Yeah, that's clear? Okay. Any other